Right, so how do we go about keeping the score in our new scene? So first you might be tempted to try something you may have seen over here in the mode with the mode parameter for the scene manager.load scene. Because the mode parameter says it allows you to specify whether or not to load the scene additively. And if you look at load scene mode over here, it says used when loading a scene in a player. Use load scene mode to choose what type of scene loads when using load scene manager.load. The available modes are single and additive. Okay, so what single does is it loads a completely new scene, whereas additive loads a scene which appears in the hierarchy window while another is active. So that actually keeps the contents of the first scene and adds the contents of the new scene. So let's just see what that does. So scene manager.load scene 1 is our index for the menu, and now we want to add a load scene mode. So load scene mode dot additive. So single is the default one that's happening, by the way. So we say additive. So it should now keep, what did I do? It should now keep the contents of the first scene when we go to the second scene. Let's see what happens. Okay, so the scene has changed, and you'll see here we have two scenes now in the hierarchy because of this additive mode. We have the mini game scene over there and the menu scene at the bottom, and the menu scene will have its contents as well. Yeah, this is not really what we want, because what we want from our little Pac-Man game is that once we reach, or once we collect all the pickups actually, we want to have a menu appear that says congratulations, you win, and then display the score. So this is not going to work for us at the moment. We don't want to have the game still running in the background. Yeah, so we don't want additive mode. We just want it to look like this. So single mode. Yeah, so how are we going to keep this data? Well, a good way to do it is through something called player prefs. It's another class in Unity. And what it does is it stores and accesses player preferences between game sessions. So normally you use this to keep track of things that someone might want to keep. Let's say they're playing your game and they change the volume, for example. When they come back to play the game again, they don't want to have the volume setting completely different. So what you do is you save it using player prefs and then load it again as soon as they start the game. We're now going to use this to keep track of our score. They have a bunch of static methods here. The ones we're going to be interested in now are setInt, this one over here, and getInt. So setInt sets the value of the preference identified by key. Let's have a look at the example over here. So here they have, in the start method, they have give the player pref some values to send over to the next scene. Oops, I clicked on scene there. So we have player prefs.setInt, and they send, this is the key that you're going to use to, basically you can think of it as a variable name. They're going to keep this value in. So they're sending an integer of value 20 to some key called score. And then we're going to access that by using the getInt method, which works like this. So you have a score that you're going to assign to, and you say player prefs.getInt, and you give the name, the name of the key that you're trying to access over there. Okay, let's try it out. So now, every time we increase our score, I want us to save that score. I'm going to change our check over here to only load scenes once we've reached the score of 5. Okay, so we're going to say player prefs dot setInt, and you can see there it tells you what it wants. It wants a key and an integer value. So I'm just going to say score, just like the example, and the value we want to put in there is score. Okay, so this will now set our integer score into our key score. That'll happen, or this value will change every time that the add score function is called. So that should work at the moment. Now we have to think of how we're going to get the score in the next scene. So let's go to our menu scene that we created. And in here, we're going to want to create under UI another text element. Switch to 2D so we can see what's happening there. Okay, so there we have our text element, and we also, I think we should keep this one in the middle. I think that's fine. So I've just positioned that in the middle. Oops, we named it. Just make it school. Okay, so we have a text in the middle there. I'm just going to change the font size and make it overflow and overflow so that we can see it better. Make it even bigger. Maybe change the color. Something like that's fine, I guess. Okay, so now in here we need to have some script that's going to access our score player pref and display it on our text object. So generally you would then attach this to main camera, but now because we are loading a new scene, I'm going to actually just create an empty game object. I'm going to call it score holder. And then on score holder, I'm going to add a new script. I'm going to call it show score. And if you open show score, we're then going to use the get function, playerprefs.getInt. playerprefs.getInt bracket, and then it's asking for the key, the string key of what we want to load. Now you just need to make sure that what you type in here matches exactly to how you saved that string. So getInt and setInt need to match exactly. Okay, so we get the score over there and we need to assign it to somewhere. So we need to create a variable for that. We're going to have int score, just assign it to 0 initially, and then we're going to say score equals that. We also need a reference to our text objects. We need to public. To use text elements, we need to include the UI. So it's a public text txt score. And I'm just going to put it in the update. I'm going to say txt score dot text is equal to, and here I'm going to say your score was score. Okay, so we get int score and assign it into score, and then we display it on our text object. I'm going to save the script, go back to Unity. And in our score holder now, you'll see we need to drag the text object into that slot. Okay, so now we need to test this. I'm going to save the scene. I'm going to go back to the mini game. Did that load? I think so. Okay, so we run now. Collect 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then it says here your score was 5. So that worked.